We have very serious waterfall parliamentary processes to talk through, so we're all very excited about what I'm going to say today. As Andy suggested, I'm here today to talk about the UK government approach to enabling personal identity. I don't think I have to sell it too hard to this audience that today it is incredibly time-consuming and basically a pain in it to prove that you are who you say you are and you have a right to do things. I know in different countries around the world there are different approaches to this. In the UK currently, you tend to have to cobble together a bunch of bits of paper and plastic to say that I am actually Hannah, I do live at this place, my age is this, and therefore I do have the rights to do certain things. It is a pain for the individual, and it is expensive for those businesses whose regulations require them to check those things about me. I have to cobble together those bits of paper every time I need to go through one of these processes, and quite often I'm told, I don't know if they do this to you in the States, but quite often they say, well no, it has to have been posted to you. Like, I don't have a bank statement posted to me anymore. So I print off the PDF off my app, and they go, no, that doesn't count. I'm like, I've been paperless for years. I was told it was good for the environment, and now I can't get a loan. So these things are tricky for people to do. They take up time. They're also really expensive, right? So we need to find a way to make more digital, hopefully at some point wholly digital, what is currently a very cumbersome paper-based process. And we want people to feel that they have choice and control in that. We're talking a lot today about how AI and the fear of the digital world are creating new threats. So we need to make sure that when we are showing people the potential of these products, we're also showing them how we are making sure they are safe and secure and that they are not jeopardizing their personal data. We've done the analysis in the UK and we think we can get £701 million of benefit per year if we can get widespread take-up. And most of that is coming from regulated industries no longer having to repeat cumbersome paper-based checks, which frankly aren't that secure anyway. There are much better ways to do these things than the ways we have at the moment. So there is a good reason why the UK government and many governments around the world are trying to make this work much better. We want to reduce fraud, we want to grow our economies, and we want to make life better for our citizens. But their problem is trust. These technologies have been around for quite a while, actually. You know, you're here today hearing about exciting agentic AI, and I'm here going, yeah, we've had these things possible on our phones for like 10 years, minimum. But they haven't been able to be relied upon. They haven't been trusted. If I go and take my digital identity, I have two at the moment on my phone, and if I take them to my bank, they will look at them and go, and if I attempt to, obviously I get ID'd all the time. No, not so much. But if such a thing were to happen, and I attempted to show a digital identity product to the barman, they would also roll their eyes and tell me to get out of this plastic because that is not good enough. So we need to find a way that I, as a citizen, can trust these products and know that I have control over the data and that they will work for me. And the industries I interact with, those relying parties, need to know that they can meet their regulatory obligations by using these products. So that's what we need to fix. We need to make sure that there is trust in these technologies, which, as I say, many of which aren't actually that new and exciting. Obviously very exciting to me, but I think I'm niche. So we need an ecosystem that everyone can rely on. And we need people to have a choice about how they're using them. We don't want them to feel that they are forced into particular routes, and we certainly don't want them to feel that this is a big brother government tool tracking them across the internet, and every time they buy something. It always makes me laugh when people conspiracy theory about this. Perhaps the US government is more efficient than ours, but the idea that we have any idea how to control any of these and our siloed data is talking to each other is for the birds. But anyway, We do need to provide that assurance that you can trust these things and that they are not a backdoor into either governments or threat actors of any sort being able to access your data and your personal information. This is a personal data-driven technology. It matters that it is safe and secure. So, I've been working with my team in the UK for a number of years now, and as Andy suggested, I've been trying to get onto the stage to tell you about it, finally here, winning. But the approach that we've been taking in the UK for the last few years has been about trying to say, well, what is it that government needs to do to make sure that that sense of security and trust is in place so that people can start using these technologies, trust these technologies, and we can get those economic benefits that I've talked about. And what we've been doing is working really closely with the identity-proofing industry and saying, right, well, what standards do we need to be pointing to? How do we make sure that those standards are actually being met? And really listening to people when they tell us what matters to them. They don't want to know which ISO standard their product meets, but they do want to know that their privacy is protected. They are mostly aware that there's some sort of data protection rules in place. They just want to know that somebody's made sure they're being followed. They don't want to have to do that themselves. So what is it that the UK government can do to create that sense of trust? And also, and this is the bit where, now that I have a new government behind me, we have been taking steps for how government can take a much more proactive role in providing the digital versions of those credentials that these products are built on. So the UK approach has been to establish a trust framework. Now, when I first started this work, everyone rolled their eyes and sent me comics about, well, everyone who wants a trust framework writes their own trust framework, and then we end up with 17 trust frameworks. So, legitimate, and that is why our one is liberally copied from others, and mostly relies on existing ISO and data protection standards, cybersecurity standards, so that what we're not doing is asking industry to jump through new and exciting niche hoops that the UK government has just come up with, but instead saying, these are the bars we expect you to meet, and if you do so, we will be able to say, this is a trustworthy product, and the people of our country and regulated industries can rely upon them. Obviously, having rules is great, but only useful if you know that people are actually following them. So our framework is has independent third-party certification against it. I know that colleagues from Kantara are here today, and they have a UK offshoot in providing that third-party independent certification. So I'm not deciding that those products meet the bar, somebody independent is, and then they tell me that they meet the bar. Really important stuff. And legislation. I was hoping I was going to stand up here today and say that our bill had finally passed. I can't quite do that because there's some AI things going on in Parliament that are taking a little energy out of the thing, but my measures have cleared Parliament. So as soon as all that AI stuff is sorted out, she says quietly, this legislation that we've been trying to get through will get through, and the work that we've been trialling with industry and with relying parties will be underpinned by a legislative process, meaning that we really think that at that point regulators and others who have been looking on at this and going, is that okay? Can we trust it? That they will be able to do so, knowing that we have that legislative framework underneath it. So really exciting stuff from my point of view as a person who finds standards and certification exciting. But again, talking about people, do you really want to know about what third-party certification means? I mean, some of you may be like me, you may be, yes. I mean, this is my audience, right? You people love this stuff. But not everyone does. So we need to make it really easy for people and for businesses to go, yep, that's trustworthy, I can use it, off we go, and not have to think about it every time, and certainly not have to go through some sort of complex process to say, through a contract, has this company hit all of these standards that I've said they need to hit? So for those organisations that go through that framework process, that are certified against it, our legislation will enable us to issue them with a trust mark. You can see this beautiful trust mark up here, UK certified. I'm told it's pronounced as. I'm not allowed to name anything for good reasons. I'm a civil servant, I'm not creative, so I just nod and say, yes, that sounds great. And we will also have a digital register, so for those who do want to dig a little deeper, they'll be able to search and make sure that any company claiming that their product meets the standards does so. And we are working to make that machine readable so that we can have machine-to-machine checking that any organisations claiming their product is on our list and meets our standards, that can be automated into the system, building in that scale that we know is going to get those economic gains that's so important. That's not the only side of the job, though, that I do. I not only need to make sure that these products are there, I also need to make sure there's demand for them. And as I was saying, there's plenty of bits of the industry that at the moment are still way too nervous and feel that they cannot trust these sorts of things. And it gets to their compliance and risk teams, and you get the teeth-sucking thing, and they go, no, please scan their passport immediately. It's not great. Just have a think about how many photos of your passport and your driver's license are on your phone, stored in some cloud, and have perhaps been emailed to random places across the globe to prove that you are who you say you are. It's not great. I would prefer the little filing cabinet thing where they used to store photocopies. At least that could be destroyed easily. Anyway. So we need to make sure that regulated sectors can trust these things and use them. And for some of that, that's about changing the law. So we're changing our Licensing Act to say that you can use digital products to prove that you are over 18 to be able to buy booze. This is a totemic issue. So we are trying to we'll get that law changed before the end of the year. We also need to change regulations, so we're doing things like working with my Treasury colleagues to make sure that it is clear that digital identity products can be used for things like anti-money laundering, know your customer checks that are in place for banking, financial services. And some of this is about norms. Some of this is about making sure that there is awareness, not only that these products are out there and trustworthy, but that, frankly, they're often better than the things we're using at the moment. So we are doing a lot of work in my team and in partnership with industry to be able to make that case, get those laws changed, the regulations updated, and make sure that people feel confident and comfortable using these products. And the big new bit that we have announced this year in the UK is about issuing digital versions of government credentials. So at the moment, you can build a digital identity product in the UK, but you tend to do things like read the NFC chip in your passport using your smartphone, or you take that delightful picture of your driver's license and do the selfie check. I don't know how many of you have gone through that lovely process. It works, but there are better ways, and in the UK, we are now moving at pace to be able to issue digital versions, credentials of those things that government gives its people, to be able to make it much easier for them to not only interact with the state, but to be able to prove that they are who they are and that they have the right to do particular things right across the UK economy. And we are going with the driver's license as one of our first credentials. So that will start rolling out by the end of the year. And we will be relying really hard on the identity industry to make sure that they are able, and only trustworthy, certified providers are able, to pull data from that wallet to be able to create the products and the interactions with relying parties. What I don't want is for these exciting, amazing credentials to become another attack vector for people. So we need to make sure that when they are checked, they are being checked by organisations that are going to follow the rules. At the moment, we have over 50 organisations that are already certified independently against the standards in our trust framework, and I'm sure that will pick up as new use cases and these digital credentials come on board. I don't know how this market's going to shake down. I'm waiting to see, are big tech going to step in? They haven't yet in the UK, but we're hearing noises. How are these sort of the more smaller companies that have been building up some really exciting products in the UK going to respond to the challenges presented? That's why our framework needs to be flexible, and we will have to renew it every year. I'm hoping we will not change it every year, because that's going to create massive headaches for me, let alone the rest of the industry. But we need to make sure it's up to date. We need to make sure that it is moving with the times and that the cyber security principles baked in are responding to the new challenges that will doubtless come down the line as we go forward. But we know that millions of checks are already happening in the UK. So in the UK, you have to prove that you have a right to work or a right to rent. So every time you employ somebody, the employer has to check that this person has that right to take that job. Those are now being done digitally enabled by certified services, and we are seeing millions happening. They are speeding up getting people on board from a process that was taking weeks to hours to minutes. This is really exciting stuff. And what we need to do is make sure that it's usable across a much broader range of organisations, use cases, and for a much broader range of citizens. Which is why it matters that the digital credentials that we put into the GovWallet to be used in these ways are inclusive, so that you don't have to just have a driver's licence. Can we bring other things on board that will help people who perhaps don't have driver's licences or passports to be able to prove that they are who they say they are, and enable them to take advantage of these exciting developments in technology. So the problem is trust. What I'm hoping is that the work that we're doing in the UK means that we can say the problem was trust, that the government has stepped in. We have found a way of being able to create that layer of certainty in how these products are going to work and how they are going to protect the people using them, and that we are going to remove the barriers to industry from relying on them so that they can make their processes much quicker, much more efficient and frictionless for their customers. And hopefully, who knows if I'll be here next year, but hopefully by next year, this stuff will really take off. The legislation will be in place. We will have our credentials out there. You will be able to buy booze using these products. And we will be starting to see that economic growth potential that is here for these sorts of products. And I hope that whether you are UK, US, European, or anywhere in the country, in the world based, that you are able to start to see how these kind of products can integrate with the work you're doing to make it easier to support your customers to have a pain-free journey, that you can employ your staff, that you can be sure that you're meeting their needs in the right ways, in ways that are trustworthy and are backed by government-issued data, but are intermediated with companies who are really meeting the standards that are so important to protect the people and the businesses that need to rely on these technologies. So thank you very much for your time today. It was a real pleasure to be here. I'll put the link to our blog there, so if you are a complete nerd about this stuff, that is where to go, and we do regularly post updates. The most recent one from our Secretary of State, which is, the Chief Minister in our department. So that's, for us, again, really exciting. You might not quite reach the same fever pitch as I do about these things, but the level of political commitment we have to making this work is really high. So I am really excited to see how we take this forward in the coming year and beyond. Thank you all very much.